Okay, just a couple of pro tips I want to give you. These are some problems students have had in the past, and I've had to answer questions about this more than once. And so I figured I'd give you a couple of hints here. All right. So here's an object. I just grabbed a box from over here on the right-hand side, and I went ahead and brought it onto my work plane. Now, when I click on that object, you'll notice right away I've got these little white squares around them. Those are called handles. All right. And I can grab the handle and stretch it like so. Or if I click on the handle, I get these little boxes here. So let's say I wanted to make this cube bigger. I wanted to make it 30 millimeters. Click on this guy, 30 millimeters. And that's one way of doing it. Now, I'm going to rotate this work plane. I could do it up here with the box, but I'm using my right mouse key and holding it down and rotating it. That's usually the way I do. By the way, if you don't have a mouse, get one, okay? But here's the height. You can tell it's the height because it's got that little double arrow kind of showing you the thing. And if I click on that guy, I could make this 30 as well, which now means I've got a perfectly good cube there. Another thing that sometimes people have had trouble with is, Mr. Pat, how do I lift something straight up? I always end up going sideways. When the object is selected, you see this little triangle up here? If you look at it from the side, it actually is almost kind of like a cone, like a birthday party hat. And grabbing that guy is going to allow you to lift it straight up and down, okay? Now, it's a little easier to see from the front view. I suppose I could just double click on front over here in the corner. And if I grab that birthday hat and pull it up and put it back down, I can go below the surface of the work plane too, I suppose. All right. So those are a couple of tricks that some students were struggling with, didn't quite understand. Oh yeah, what about these arrows here? Well, again, it has a lot to do with how you're looking at the cube. If you're looking at it mostly from a front view, this is going to allow you to turn it this way. And you're like, but Mr. Pat, I want to turn it the other way. Well, then maybe you need to look at it this way. So you've got this arrow, and you see this curving arrow here with two heads. Oh, now I can turn it like that. And I suppose I don't have to be 100% head on like that. Yeah, what if I want to go it the other way? Here is going to allow me to do it this way, okay? So I'm constantly rotating either with my cube here, but I prefer to use my mouse button. My right mouse button allows me to, this is called transposing, I'm pretty sure. And I also do a lot of zooming in and out. When I want to see something up close, when I want to see more of my work plane, I'm zooming in and out and I'm moving around all the time, okay? Now, another concept sometimes students have trouble with. Every one of these shapes over here on the right, I can have either as a solid or as a negative space. In other words, I can make it a hole, which kind of some people have trouble just getting their head around that. All right. So once again, here's my handles, and I can stretch it out and do stuff like this. And if I just kind of drag this guy over, you can see that now that blue kind of, I don't know what that is, oblong shape is in part of my square. Now, in the real world, you know that would never happen, right? Because two objects can't occupy the same space, okay? But here in Tinkercad, they can. Now, I can do a couple of things. One, I've got that object there. Let's say I wanted that to be a hole that was that shape. Over here, where you see the blue solid button, just click on hole, and it cuts that shape away. Isn't that cool? All right, but it's not quite perfect yet. Here's what we need to do. We need to tell Tinkercad, look, we want that hole to be a part of this cube forever. So I'm going to click up here and draw a box around both of these shapes. And you can see that now the handles go around both of these shapes. And then up here on the top, you might notice there's some gray tools here, ungroup and that, and some are black. Watch this. I'm actually going to go back over here where I've got my back button. And yeah, you can see that when these things are not selected, none of these tools are black. In other words, none of those tools will work until you say, hey, I want to use these tools on these pieces. So I'm going to draw a box around these pieces. And now all of a sudden, I can group them. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Here, let me just do that guy. Make him a hole. Then draw a box around it. and group them. Do you see how I now cut a hole through that box by grouping them together? Okay, it's now one piece. All right. Fun fact, I can also ungroup. And then that shape comes back to me. And maybe I want to make it solid this time. All right. Another thing I can do when my two objects are selected is do a thing called aligning. And aligning means just to line things up or center things. So if I click on my align tool, I almost always want to use this center dot, because if you look, this is a little bit farther to the left than to the right. That kind of moved it over. And let's see, maybe I want to do that to get it right into the middle. So that is now perfectly centered right down the middle. All right. Now I can click on that. I can click on this shape, make it a hole, and then group it. And now that hole is nice and even. Okay. So here's the big picture, guys. If you've got more than one object on the work plane and you want to do something to them, you want to add them to each other, or you want them to be lined up, you need to draw a box around both of them. Okay. And here I'll align these guys. See how that's nice and centered now? There, perfectly centered. All right. Remember also that when you click on an object, these handles allow you to change the size. This party hat allows you to move things up and down. And these curvy arrows allow you to rotate things. All right. So those are a few skills that I know students were having a really hard time with, and I was answering a lot of questions. Hopefully I haven't confused you more, but what I'd like you to do is play around with rotating your work plane, zooming in and out, clicking on these handles, changing these numbers, right? Changing these numbers, lifting things up and down. You know, there's something to be said for just playing and learning by experience, okay? They call that time with the tools. So the more time you spend working on things, the better you're going to get at it. And then, of course, selecting more than one object and going ahead and grouping them or maybe aligning them, and then you'll see they act as one piece. All right, these are all important skills, and I think it's worth you taking a few minutes to just kind of experiment and play around with this so that you can get better. All right, it's going to make your whole life a lot easier when you start getting into more advanced TinkerCAD projects. And just one more thing I wanted to point out about work planes. TinkerCAD always gives you this nice blue work plane, and when you bring an object in, it automatically goes down on there. It's almost like it's the ground or the floor of whatever your project is. But when you want to add a shape, say I wanted to put something on the side of this cube here, what you need to do is come over here and grab a work plane and put it on the side you want to add something to. And now you can see that work plane is on that side there instead of on the bottom. So if I bring this cylinder over, it's going to line up pretty nicely. All right. Now, if you don't use a work plane and you just tried to bring that cylinder in, matching it up perfectly with the face of this, super, super difficult, okay? And when I'm usually done with something like that, I take my work plane and I put it back down on the bottom just because that's where we're used to, you know, the floor being underneath our feet, so to speak, all right? So whenever you're going to add something to a shape or combine two shapes together, work plane is your friend, all right? I'm going to put something on top here. I'll grab this guy, and that's perfect, right on level with that guy. And then, of course, to continue working, I'll put my plane underneath there. Now, if you do add a shape in there, you might want to align it or group it and do all those other tasks that we've learned about. But for right now, I just wanted you to know a little bit more about work planes. All right, good luck, and spend some time playing around with these features, because guess what? That's how you're going to learn. All right, enjoy.